Good morning, everybody. Fergus Dolan here from NALA. Delighted to have you here this morning for our webinar on making the best use of video and digital tools in the online ESOL classroom and creating resources and tasks to support the use of video. And we're delighted to have Jillian Frayne this morning as facilitator. Jillian's an ESOL tutor and school support program coordinator with the City of Dublin ETB. So over to you, Jillian.
Great, thank you, Fergus. Welcome, everyone. I'm really glad to be here this morning. Great to have everybody here. And you can see, if you're just joining us, maybe introduce yourself in the chat. There's a link in the chat also. It takes you to Flipgrid, which is a tool that I recommend using. I'll get to it a little bit more later, but if you wanted to explore it while we were coming in. So our workshop, our webinar this morning is using video in the online ESOL classroom. So the first thing is to question why use video. And I suppose one of the things I've experienced is video facilitates the blended learning model that we've all been engaging in or will continue to engage in for the foreseeable. So the three modalities with self-directed learning, on-site learning and online. And the key question that I would like us to explore today is how can we improve on what we're currently doing? Okay. So today's webinar will demonstrate the use of digital tools in the online classroom. So I'd ask you to watch out for the little tools icon. We will recall and understand why using video in the online classroom can maximize ESOL learner engagement, recall and review the stages in the task cycle specific to using video. I will outline some skill-focused task types for use of video in the classroom. And then I'm going to put you into breakout rooms where we can reimagine resources and tasks to support video content using the Samir model. So if you're not familiar with that, again, it'll become clearer as we move along. And also I've provided a curated list of websites with language, content, videos and related worksheets. So sort of ready-made lessons. And that's basically it. So we have a lot to get through. And without further ado, I would ask us to create a Wordle. So I have two questions for you and the links will be in the chat. I'm going to pop them in there now. So the first question is, what learning management systems or digital tools do you currently use? Okay, so that first link is in the chat. Again, don't worry about getting to both questions. If you get one of them, that would be fine. And then the second question then is what digital tools do you use to support video? So I'd just like to get a flavor of where people are at in their current practice. So we're all coming from different places and different levels of experience. So I'll pop both of those into the chat there. And if you click on the link, it will take you to, one second now, if I'm in presenter mode. Let me bring this one up and I'll get you here. So what you need to be doing is answering here. Okay. I'll get my screen back up there. So that'll take you, I'm going to just share this screen now so that everybody can see. Yeah, so I can see where people are using Shobi, Teams, Flipgrid, Edpuzzle. Yeah. So if you've just joined us, there's a link in the chat to give us some idea of learning management systems and digital tools that you might be using currently. Okay. And then specifically, what digital tools do you use with video? So going to our second question. What digital tools do you use to support video? Menti, eForms, Padlet, great. Yeah. Okay. So coming back to our, so you can carry on pasting into that. Get my share going again. There we go. So that one, as you post in, that will just keep building on itself. This is a great tool as a brainstorm tool for the classroom. So again, I would recommend Answer Garden. It's free, they stay there, and you can take photos of them and share them with your students as a brainstorm model. So moving on, I have a video which I'm going to show you now. I'll drop this link into the chat as well, okay, because there are some activities that go with it. You do not have to do them right now, but if you feel that you would like to participate in a conversation here while we're watching the video, responding, we can do that. Okay, so let's take it back here so I can get our video started. And we're here. Okay. So talking about Bloom's digital taxonomy, we're all very familiar with Bloom's taxonomy as teachers, okay? Bloom's digital taxonomy is a little bit different. So I'm going to play this video. Hello.
Jillian, that's not playing.
Okay, just a moment.
Yeah.
Stairway, where teachers set learning of taxonomy.
Okay, are we good? Can we see it?
Yes, we can see it
Yes. Okay, brilliant. All right.
A model that classifies different levels of human cognition in thinking, learning, and understanding. As a teacher, you've likely used this taxonomy to guide the development of curriculum, assessments, and instructional strategies. But how is this model affected in an age of digital technology, and how might it influence your instruction?
I'm just going to very quickly pause there. So most of you would be familiar with Edpuzzle, okay? I've seen it in your responses there on Answer Garden. This one, Video Ant, is slightly different, okay? So it embeds questions into a video in a similar way to Edpuzzle. However, we can add in our comments. You can see over on the right, the video will pop up. You can pause it, so you can use this in your classroom and pause and get the students to log their responses. And I've just put in 3 different questions here. So if you're using this in the link, you can respond to the questions I've put in there, or you can explore it a little bit later.
Instructional design. Let's take a step back. Bloom's taxonomy was created in the 1950s by educational psychologist Benjamin Bloom and his colleagues. The 3 lower levels, knowledge, comprehension, and application, are more basic levels of cognition, also called lower order thinking skills. This would include concrete thinking, memorization, and understanding. The 3 upper levels, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation, referred to as higher order thinking skills, include abstract, critical, metacognitive, and creative thinking. Some have likened the model to a mountain or a stairway, where teachers set learning objectives and design learning experiences to guide students to higher levels of thinking. The taxonomy has become an important model for structuring students' learning processes. In the 1990s, Bloom's taxonomy was updated by a group led by David Krathwohl, one of the original authors, and Lauren Anderson, a former student of Bloom's. To make the model relevant to 21st century learning, one of their main changes was updating the nouns associated with each level to action-oriented verbs. This differentiation positions thinking as an action-based process rather than one of passive acquisition. For example, knowledge was replaced with remember, analysis was changed to analyze, and so on. They also reordered the last 2 steps. Evaluation, which was previously at the top, was moved down, and creating, formerly synthesis, was moved to the top. With this framing, educators have several different verbs, questions, and instructional strategies associated with each level. In recent years, there have been many iterations and metaphors for Bloom's taxonomy, including an orange, where the 6 levels are distributed more equally, moving cogs, representing an interworking system in which creation is dependent upon all of the other aspects, or a flipped pyramid, illustrating an emphasis on higher order thinking skills.
So there's just a little indicator for our second question here, updated taxonomy. And the question I'd ask you to consider is, how have you been designing lessons to deliver a balance between the different levels of the framework in your classroom, particularly in the online classrooms?
But in thinking about how technology affects this model, consider it as Bloom's digital taxonomy. This updated version aims to expand upon the skills associated with each level as technology becomes a more ingrained and essential part of learning. For instance, some propose that new action verbs can be applied within each level. Let's take a look at creating, in which learners are designing, inventing, and constructing a piece of work that shows what they know. One could add new digital verbs to creating, like blog, remix, or program. These verbs refer to possible learning activities that incorporate digital technologies in which students are creating. Adding digital verbs to the taxonomy also promotes 21st century skills like communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. Others have taken the 6 levels of the taxonomy and aligned them with technology tools that help foster each level. For example, as a teacher, you can think about how to integrate apps and websites that help students remember content, like flashcards or drill and practice tools. There are tools that help students analyze and make sense of content, like reading charts, graphs, or mind maps. Or you can think about what tools support student creation, like producing, podcasting, blogging, coding, editing, and more. With these examples, the focus should not necessarily be on the tools themselves, but on how the tools can be vehicles in transforming student thinking at different levels. So, as you weave technology into your teaching, ask yourself, how can the tools you use support different cognitive levels? Which tools help you address lower order thinking skills? And which can help challenge students' higher order thinking skills?
And I'll pause it there. So that's just the final question that's raised in this particular video. And again, you can take your time later if you like to come in and comment on this one here. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share there and go back to our PowerPoint. And if you have any questions, you can pop them into the chat and maybe we can get to them towards the end. All right. So the big thing with our online classroom and video is that we're considering Bloom's digital taxonomy, okay? I would imagine you are familiar with the technology wheel at this stage because you've mentioned all of these things. We have Alan Carrington's pedagogy wheel model, which I'm going to drop into the chat here. This one is a great complement to the digital taxonomy. The reason being, because it links you directly to the tool that you can use to develop a specific thinking skill or cognitive skill. So I'm dropping that one in there. And there are related videos explaining the rationale behind the creation of that. Okay, so I am going to open my next tool. And we're going to have a look at another video very, very quickly. So this one I have embedded into a screen that I'm using. You may or may not be familiar with this tool. It is called Classroom Screen. So if you're familiar with it, you can let me know in the chat, okay? So this one is there's a free trial available, and I highly recommend using this one when you're using video because it gives a good interactive. It gives you everything on the one page. So depending on the language, the learning management system that you are using, this is a good complement, okay? So the instructions here, watch the video, or you can use a QR code to go to this designingoutcomes.com to download a copy of the tool I've posted into the chat, or you can use the link in the chat to download a copy of the tool. Okay. Students can download the software for QR codes onto their devices, onto their tablets or their mobile phones. But what I really like about this particular tool here, as you can see down at the bottom, there's over 13 widgets, all right? So it allows you to embed your media, we have the QR code and the text. So you can have your screen and your technology or your video on the same screen, instead of having to go into a split screen. And as you've seen me going back in and out of different screens and losing the momentum, I've everything on the one screen here. I can show you the video. And at the same time, I can have the questions on the screen while you watch. Okay, you can add subtitles in, as you can see. The other great thing about this one, particularly for language learners, is you can change the language. Okay, so the settings you can put it into if you've got a group of students, you know, who are all speaking Arabic or another language, or one particular student. If you want to differentiate there, you can change the language settings on this. I can bring up a stopwatch for timed tasks. I can have the clock, which is really useful to have generally, the timer here, so you can assign an activity. We've got the calendar. So there are some great tools on this one that complement using video in the classroom. And it shows you at the bottom, you know, you can have different, 4 different clocks up if you want to set the time and you're doing an activity that's specifically focused on time. Okay, so as I say, I just wanted to show you that as a tool. I'm going to stop this share here. I'm not going to get us to watch that video because we will run out of time if we watch every video. You can see on my screen that I have linked in. I'm just about to share the screen again, back to my PowerPoint. On my screen, I have a link here to a poll. So I'll drop that into the chat. And again, if you want to copy it for later, it will give you an option to rate the tool. Okay. Get there now. So you can use this in your classroom. How are you following the lesson? You know, whatever it is. What do you think of the content? Let me copy and paste that there for some reason. Anyhow, I'll get it into you, or it'll be in the PDF that I sent. So moving on. Share my screen again. There we go. Can everybody see the screen? Just want to check. We're all good to see everything. Nothing's in the way. Give me a thumbs up.
Yeah.
We're all good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So moving on to our next segment. We want to look and see why using video in the online classroom will maximize learner engagement. Again, if you have any comments, pop them into the chat. So why bother use video at all? Okay, there's a number of reasons. It's a shared learning experience. So communicative language teaching and learning has proven that the use of video can actually accelerate the understanding of learners to the real use of language. And this is Warsher said this in 2002. Video input, okay, is enriched with opportunities for holistic development of macro skills, reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and then the micro competencies in those particular skills in language. So there are so many good reasons for using video. It's a dynamic video medium. It allows learners to hear and see the speakers, and this provides access to situational cues, paralinguistic features, and the non-verbal aspects of communication. So, you know, we hear something, we retain 10% of it, we read it 20%, we see it, we hold on to 80%. And then the technical features of video give teachers the control required to facilitate learner analysis and comprehension. So stop, pause, play, rewind, and so on. Okay, so it's just everything is good for videos. You're probably familiar with Stephen Creshen's input hypothesis, comprehensible input. With video, learners are provided with visual, contextual, and oral inputs, language inputs, and they can be provided with the visual and contextual reading inputs when we add subtitles. As a result, learners will be able to understand every class, no matter what the topic. When it comes to output, Meryl Swain talks about comprehensible output. So learners can be challenged to interact with video content to engage in authentic spoken outputs, and likewise to produce authentic written input. So you're challenging them to interact with the video content. And they're also challenged to focus on the means of expression. And this task of producing language renders language gaps noticeable by the learner. And as a result, they will acquire productive language in every class. Okay, so a little activity for you in the chat. So if you can pop your answer to these statements in the chat. So thumbs up or thumbs down, do or don't. Watch your video before you use it. What do you think, a do or a don't? So I need to get my chat. Yes, do, yes, 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 yes. Great. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of this one. Next statement. Use videos longer than 5 minutes. Do or don't? Don't. Don't. Only if you have several hours. Yeah, it depends on what you're actually doing with the video. But yes, for the most part, no longer than 5 minutes. Show videos that hook your audience. Do. Yes, great. Watch a video only once. No, depends. Don't, not necessarily. Yeah, so a little bit mixed with 50-50 here. So I've shown you videos only once, mainly because we're native speakers. I just want to get across a little bit of content. I'm using the video just to prevent you having to listen to me talking all the time. But yes, for the most part, we would show a video more than once. Give a transcript to follow along. Depends, not a first, depends, not always. No, give at the end. Exactly, yes, Emer, it's not a reading class, only if it's a reading class. So never, ever, ever give the transcript, or if for that matter, put the subtitles on, unless it's a reading class, okay? Next statement, allow learners to look at questions while viewing. No. Read before, after, no. So allow before, okay, interesting. I would argue, as I've shown you with that video ant, and Ed Puzzle does it a little bit too, to show but less so, to show questions while viewing, to allow the learners to look. So you can split your screen. So I do think that it's a good idea to allow learners to look at the questions while viewing, so they know that's what they're looking for. You've got a timeline also, okay? If you think about your textbook, the questions are there on the same page as the screen, so they can look at the questions while reading, okay? So some of you may continue to disagree, but I would advocate for showing the questions while viewing. Require specific vocabulary or grammar from a learner on a viewing task. Mary said, do they not get distracted? I don't think so. If they're getting distracted for a good reason. They're getting distracted to be on target. Okay, and remember, we're going to show the video several times. So you might show your gist questions first, followed by reading for detail or so on. So you can stream the questions, you know. So require specific vocabulary or grammar in a class that's using video, and we have depends. Depends on what? We got any response to that one? 2 responses. Let me see. Relates to the topic. Yes, enclosed gap but it's not generally for a subject scan. Yeah, we'll see as we go on, or I hope you'll see as you go on. I would not be requiring any vocabulary or grammar unless I'm teaching a vocabulary or grammar lesson. So unless the video is a vocabulary video or a grammar video, then no. So underneath then, provide suggestions for vocabulary or grammar in a lesson using video. Yes. Katrina, yes. Do I mean preach? Yes, I suppose mean preach, Emer, when it comes to Oh, pre-teach. Sorry. No, I'm not talking about pre-teach. I'm talking about an activity, a task that has involved video, so that you're requiring them to use specific vocabulary or grammar. So that would be a don't in my book, okay? Because unless it's a grammar lesson, unless you're using video to teach them grammar and the activity following that or before it requires specific vocabulary or grammar, no. Provide suggestions for specific vocabulary and grammar, yes, choice, okay? Fluency versus accuracy, exactly, Katrina, yeah. So it depends on what you're doing. Are you teaching them accuracy or are you teaching them fluency or practicing fluency? Okay. Set a previewing task for students, create a purpose for watching. I imagine we'll have a lot of do's here. Absolutely. Yes, do, yeah. Okay. And set lots of different macro skill activities, okay, throughout instead of one big skill task. So what I mean is reading lots of different reading activities, lots of different listening activities, lots of different speaking, instead of one big task. What do you think? Yes, do. Not lots, a few. Okay. Anyone else want to come in here before we get depends with good sequencing? Depends. Okay, I'm going to argue no. Okay. I'm going to argue that you should have one big skill task. Yes, there will be smaller segments, but the skill that you're focusing on, one big skill, okay, instead of, segments. And it's very common for us to do segments. We'll do reading now, we'll do speaking now, we'll do listening, and we're covering all 4 skills in the one lesson. Anyway, we'll get a little bit to that. Expect learners to understand everything. No, yes, perfect. No, they will not understand everything. Tell learners that outcome of the lesson is to develop X skill. So in terms of setting outcomes and, providing them for the day, definitely not. Laura, I presume it's that one. Yes. Laura, if you're answering definitely not to that one, tell learners the outcome of the lesson is to develop X skill, I would completely agree with you. I would never tell students, today we're going to practice our listening skills, we're going to develop our reading skills. That's a side aim. The outcome of the lesson is something different. Okay. Brainstorm before output tasks. Okay. So brainstorm before they do reading, brainstorm before they do speaking or writing, sorry, and speaking. Yes, exactly. And then next one, which is our final one here, have learners read transcripts out loud. Katrina, is that a no to that? I'm presuming yes, no, not necessarily. Okay, 3 no's. Anyone else want to chime in on that before we move on? No. Okay, why? Only at the end, only to address pronunciation. Yeah, even at that, why? Why are we doing it? It's not a reading class, and you would never read out loud either. Genuine, authentic reading is not, unless it's a reading class, but you wouldn't read out loud in any sort of situation, authentic situation. Okay, so they're the general rules for using video. You'll see as we come along where they fit into place. So the stages and tasks and in the instructional methodology specific to video. Again, I'm going to race through these slides. They will be there for you to look at later. So what is a task? And this is what I've been sort of hinting at previously. An activity that requires learners to arrive at an outcome from given information through some process of thought and which allows teachers to control and regulate that process, right? So we've got before reading, during reading, and after reading, okay? But again, what is the task? Okay, so the characteristics of tasks. Skehan said in 1996, meaning is primary, focuses on fluency, general understanding, and conveying meaning. There is a communicative problem to solve, an information or opinion gap. So you mentioned close. There's a relationship with real world activities, and the assessment is in terms of a non-linguistic task outcome, so a concrete result or a product. So the result being at the end of the lesson, they will have developed their reading skills or their listening skills or whatever skill it is that you've decided to focus on, but that is not the aim. the goal of the lesson. That's not what we tell the student. Okay, you can say it as a side thing, but it's not the overall, that's not their task of the lesson. So then what's a video-based task? An interactive use situation that develops both receptive and productive skills. The sequence, we've got our pre-viewing, our viewing, and our post-viewing. So typical tasks here: warm-up questions, brainstorm, preview, watch, watch for details, complete exercises, comprehension, all of these things. But
I'm sitting here in the boring room. It's just another rainy Sunday afternoon. I'm wasting my time, I got nothing to do. I'm hanging around, I'm waiting for you, but nothing ever happens. And I wonder.
Okay, so I have gone through all of this kind of stuff with our students, and I wonder why they have not improved. Okay, it takes them a very, very long time to prove. So we need to give them a better purpose for doing things. How can we improve on what we are currently doing? This is the question that I'm constantly asking myself. We remove the fourth wall. Okay, so you're showing a video in class, you've given them questions, they've got little activities. And again, you don't really know that the students are doing the work that you're asking them to do. You're sitting there staring at, your screen, you're working really hard. And, when you eventually come back into the class, they don't have the work completed. They can't remember the stuff that you've taught them. All of this kind of thing happens. So we want to take them from passive to active. Okay, and again, this is stuff that we all know. How do we do that? We want to go from active actually to reactive. Okay, we want them to like it, celebrate it, love it, find insight, and become curious about what it is we're teaching them. So we're setting tasks that become increasingly more communicative as the video progresses. They're discussing it, they're predicting it, they're just doing the task while they're viewing a task. They're describing it, they're listening for it, repeating it, teach it, retell the story or whatever they've seen, revising it, that means changing it, not remembering it, and reporting on it. Okay, so tell tools for use with video. Pre and post viewing. We've got Answer Garden, which I got you to do. You might be familiar with Quizzes and Kahoot. MB Studios is another one for pre and post viewing. Flipgrid, which I posted earlier, for pre-viewing or pre-doing, and Spreaker. Okay, while viewing Edpuzzle, you've mentioned Nearpod, Vialogs, MB Studios, Ant, the video Ant that you had a look at, and Go Play Posit. Okay, and then some interactive multimedia platforms, Spiral, Thingling, Padlet, I'm sure you're all familiar with, and then the classroom screen that I showed you with the little widgets on it. Okay, so I've just classified them out into different stages of the viewing. Okay, and very, very briefly, I'm not going to go through this with you. I'm going to skip forward. This is just some information on them. You can have a look when the workshop is over. Okay, so I want to take us down to tell tools for use with video-based tasks. So if you're doing an online discussion forum, there's a list of things that can work. If you're doing collaboration, these ones work. Assessment, these ones are good for that. Independent activities, and so on. Again, you can have a look. So using video and the digital tools will increase the possibilities of using any text in the classroom, enable design for online participation, promote the learner-centered task, the task problem-based approach to learning, provide learners with scaffolds, increase their engagement, motivate them, enable tutors and learners to work together on the learning resources, save you time, and make it fun. So outlining skill-focused task types, this is where we're getting into the grit. So there's a little how-to there. So if you want to get a transcript for any video and hyperlink it to a Google Doc, there's a video here, which I will drop into the chat for you, that shows you how to do it. Again, it's not something that I'm here to show you to do today. Lots of stuff on YouTube to learn how to do these things. Okay, but I have used these with great success to basically get transcripts for any video I want to use. Then this one is also great. It'll take your Google document when you've made your plan as to what you're doing, and it will transform it into a Google form, which is very, very useful to get that interaction. So I'll paste them in there. So one is using where's my PowerPoint gone? One is using transcripts from video. And then the second one is a Google document to a Google form. Okay, so using video, the materials. Okay, so the workshop is talking about resources. The resources are the video. Okay, you've got your audio text, you've got images from the stills, the transcript, the vocabulary that's embedded in any video, and the language structures that can be unpacked. Okay, so then all of our typical ESOL tasks are label visuals, matching activities, gap fill, unscrambled, sentence completion, sentence construction, substitution tables, all this kind of thing. A lot of these are, you know, they can be content, they can be linked to vocabulary, they can be linked to language structures. But again, focusing on the task, the authentic communication. And this is what we want our learners to be able to do, communicate authentically, all right, in real life. So what skills can we focus on when using video? All of them, all right, so reading and video skills. Think about the four sub skills: skimming, scanning, intensive reading, and extensive reading. Okay, so again, at different levels, we can apply these. So reading strategies will lead to reading skills, and it's the reading skills that make it automatic, that make it fluent. Okay, the tasks are learner level dependent and will focus on their lower level processes, so the phonics, pronunciation, all that stuff, to the higher level processes. Always think task before the text. Okay, so what's the aim of your reading lesson? It is to develop their overall reading comprehension and fluency. That's your aim. But what are they going to do? They're going to read and do what? Read and okay, two main types of tasks according to Long in 1985. There's the target task, which is what you're going to think about here, which is everyday life. And then you've got the pedagogic task, the subtask to prepare for the future target tasks in real life. So we will have all of the pedagogic tasks in our lessons, but what about the target task? How are we getting them to do that using video? Okay, so video then as a tool and a text. Video is used to engage them. Video is used as a visual text. Video is used as a transcript, and video is used with subtitles. So, like, you know, what kind of reading are they going to do when they're watching a video? Subtitles. That's it in a nutshell. You can get them to reorder the dialogue lines, complete sentences, or visual organizers based on what they're watching, like a note-taking activity. They can write questions as a predictive activity into the video, and they can watch with subtitles. They are real life authentic tasks using video. Okay, we've got our do don't, which I'm not going to go through. I've already gone through it. This is for the separate skills. I'm going to whip down here to our writing skills, because we're going to go into a breakout room very shortly, so we stay on track. Main stages of writing: we've got our planning, drafting, editing, revising, proofreading. Writing strategies again will lead to writing skills, and the same idea as with the reading that I've shown you. So we want to manipulate the script to the language, handwriting, spelling, punctuation. You know all of this stuff. Again, it'll be in the PowerPoint, the PDF version of this, and the recording. So video as a tool and a text. All right, so video is used as a visual. So this is for writing, a visual text or a prompt. Video is used as a model text for structure and useful language. Video is used with subtitles so they can see, right? So you can, a little idea here, play it with no audio. They plan, they draft something, then play it with audio, they edit, they compare it, and then they revise it, okay? Task before the test: aim, develop their skills. Watch and do what? Again, authentic communicative goal, a reason for writing, an understanding of the audience and the theme. So quite often, you know, we will say, oh, write 10 sentences about your home. Why? Okay, when will you ever write 10 sentences about your home? You know, write a review of your hometown for Yelp or something like that, for another purpose, for a real life purpose. Okay, subtitles are captioning, descriptions, acting it out. You know, these are sort of for the lower. Tell the story. A project with a timeline app. These are other ways of interpreting video. Note taking, using grids and films or episode scenes to record who, what, where, when, and why. Written answers to questions that the video provides answers to. And then collaborative writing with Google Docs or video notes. Okay, so it can be, you know, watch this video and write an itinerary for a day out in Dublin or in your city or whatever, where they're actually writing something that's going to be read by someone else, not them not in class. Okay, so a couple of things here just with this. Learners read their writing out loud at the end. What do you think? Do or don't? Sorry, Marissa. I can slow down, but we'll have less time in a breakout room. I'll top that one up again. Just let me share my screen there. Okay, so looking here, all right, with writing, use breakout rooms for paired writing or peer edits. What do you think? Do or don't? Yes, Emer, exactly. Do. Peer writing and editing is great. Yeah, use your breakout room. That's it in a nutshell. Use high tech or low tech to see the learner drafts of writing. Do from Mary. Do, yeah. That, I mean, look, you know, you can have them working on a collaborative document in a breakout room, but worst case scenario, things go to, you know, custard, and you can get them to write it on paper, take a photograph and send it to you. And that works too. Learners read the writing out loud at the end of the class. What do you think? No, only if they're happy with it. Megan says no. Emer says if they're happy to read it. Yeah, I would agree. Megan, no. Why? When would you ever read your writing out loud? Okay, unless it's poetry or something like that. So instead of doing that, facilitate publishing. Okay, so use a digital tool so that they can publish it. Okay, because that's why we write. We write for somebody else to read it, and we want to facilitate some way of publishing our writing so that it can be read. And then you can allow commenting on that, evaluation, and all sorts of other things. So an authentic writing task or communicative task, you can use WordPress, set up a blog for the students, or any other tool. I'm just using this one, or something called Vialogs, which I've set up, which is great. They can comment on their writing. It's like dialogues, but online, a blog. Same thing here, right, for listening skills. Okay, so this is all, I've just broken them down because what I would like you to do is to think about separating your skills instead of going, let's do all 4 skills in the one space. Okay. Video as a tool, again, same thing. It's a text, it's a prompt. For listening, it's a model text, and it will engage them in the lesson. All right. So listening provides the base for comprehensible input. Okay, so this is one that really, you know, it's a big one to focus on. Listen and watch, and then do what. Okay, so well-designed video activities will take them from passive listening to active interaction. So again, you know, a reason for listening, and there needs to be the productive struggle of missing stuff. So I don't really mean a gap fill and they get everything right, but you're listening to me now, Marina. I'm really glad that you said I'm going very fast and you're missing something. This is a real listening activity. We're pressed for time, and they are. When you listen, you are going to miss out on stuff. You're not going to catch everything. Okay. And in a classroom, we have a controlled environment. We can get them to listen to it a few times. So there is that productive struggle of missing stuff. They have to really engage basically for a listening activity, and with video, we have the opportunity to provide that. So again, for different tasks, any activity that you use with a reading video text can be used with a listening test, because the same receptive skills, the same stages in the framework, and an identical way really of structuring your lesson. So they can listen and describe without watching. There can be jigsaw listening and watching with a report back. You can show the video without sound. They choose titles. They can listen and make predictions, you know, as you pause along. So there are loads of ways into this. So again, you know, with this, the listening skills, I've kind of touched on these points already. Would you give the transcript to follow along? And I would imagine there's a unanimous no, because it's not a reading activity. It is a listening activity. And you wouldn't tell them, oh, we're going to develop our listening skills. Would they look at the questions while listening and watching? Again, with the reading, you would allow them, because again, like that, it gives them a timeline for doing so, for doing the task. Okay. So here we have, I'm going to drop this one into the chat. If you have a look at it, I would have, it's a play posit, copy, and I'll pop it into the chat there. So when you go into the breakout room, you'd be free to, you know, explore these, or again, in your own time. Sorry, I've sent that now directly to you, Marissa. I wanted to go to everyone. You are free to explore these in your own time. So this is a watch and listen. This is a reading and writing unit 1. Something that you can have a look at a little bit later. Speaking skills, same thing. The whole thing is an authentic communicative goal, a reason for speaking. And the outcome of using the language is not simply to have this, you know, manufactured conversation. I say this, you say that, I say that, you say this, but that they have real sustained conversation, and that it doesn't end until they've achieved the goal. Okay, so they have to keep talking, and they have to find ways around the lack of language. All right, so tasks can be watch and work together to do any number of these things. Again, this is just a very, very brief list. You can get as creative as you want. So one example I mentioned already, plan and present an itinerary, business or a party, to find things in common, to convince others to do, to evaluate peer work, any kind of speed chatting or speed dating sort of stuff, you know. Okay, so again, the same idea with, as I pointed out earlier, I do really feel that there should be just one big speaking task. Okay, and that you should not require specific vocabulary or grammar. You should provide suggestions, and that you should not correct errors as they speak, and that you would conduct feedback after speaking. You would use breakout rooms to facilitate speaking, and you would plan to maximize the speaking time. So my final question now, before I ask you to go into breakout rooms, is, do you think you would disappear during a speaking activity or any kind of breakout activity? Do or don't? Does the teacher disappear during the activity? And by disappear, I mean just let them do it. What do you think? Yes. You should disappear. Yes, yes-ish. That's it. Yeah. Yeah, for the most part, you do disappear. Yeah, you're there. You pop in and out if they're in a breakout room, but you allow them to struggle. You allow them to do the task. Okay. One last thing, sorry, before I get into breakout room, music videos. Okay, so these are great actually for speaking. So it's a watching comprehension. You focus on some fluency activities. The outcome is to watch and tell the story they see on the screen. So it can be language based, you know, though it's not a grammar lesson. Your language focus is reactive more than anything else. So after they've done it, then you could do a little segment, or, you know, your next lesson will be a lesson on the present continuous or the past tense or something like that. What you do need to have here is a video with a story. You also need a video story that could have different possible endings. And then the third requirement, but not necessarily essential, is some kind of linguistically interesting lyrics. Okay.